Hello everyone, and welcome to Hopeful Moments 1. Today, we're going to hear a story about an intern's experience at a software development company, where he had to handle a challenging client request. This client, Karen, asked for a discount after receiving an estimate for a time-tracking software for her employees. Even though the intern and his supervisor patiently explained and refused to change the price, Karen kept trying to negotiate, even going to the company to file a complaint. Today's story will take you through an unexpected situation. After being rejected, Karen didn't just send her request back, she even went to the company to renegotiate the price, showing her determined yet unreasonable attitude. However, the company's and employees' response was another surprise as they stood firm, not yielding, and eventually put Karen on the blacklist, advising her to find another company. If you found this story interesting and full of valuable lessons, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to learn more valuable lessons. At the software development company where I interned, the process of estimating the cost for a project or software update was regularly carried out through a detailed spreadsheet. This spreadsheet was a crucial tool to determine basic elements such as the list of employees involved in the project, the estimated work hours for each person, the specific tasks to be completed, and other factors such as the tools and technologies that would be used. Each software project has its own unique characteristics, so cost calculations had to be very detailed and precise to ensure that the budget or timeline was not exceeded. The process started when an intern, like me, was tasked with gathering information from various departments in the company. These departments included the programming team, analysts, software testers, and user interface design experts. Each department would provide estimates for the time and effort required to complete their portion of the work in the project. Once all the data was gathered and verified, the team would use the spreadsheet to calculate the total cost, including labor costs and any additional expenses from external factors like supporting software, machinery, or special technologies. Afterward, this cost estimate would be sent to the client for review, and they would decide whether to accept or reject it. An important note that we always had to keep in mind was that our company was very popular in the region and had a large number of clients. This sometimes led to long wait times, especially when projects needed cost estimates before they could proceed. If a client rejected an estimate, they couldn't immediately request a new one and had to wait in line again. This process could extend the waiting time, so clients usually had to think carefully before rejecting the estimate, because once they rejected, they would have to go back to the top of the list to request another estimate, making negotiations and bargaining quite stressful. This was an important factor that we had to make clear to the client from the start so they could understand the process and the importance of making quick and accurate decisions. On a particularly slow workday, I found that I didn't have many complex tasks to handle. My typical tasks mostly revolved around answering client calls and running coffee errands for my colleagues, routine duties that any intern would have to go through. Even though the work was quite dull and simple, I didn't feel disappointed. On the contrary, I saw it as an opportunity to learn and observe how the staff in the company operated. After all, these tasks were just the first step in helping me gradually understand the work environment and the company's processes. However, something unexpected happened that completely changed the rhythm of my workday. A call came in from a client, and this was my chance to showcase what I had learned during my internship. The client was a woman, seemingly the owner of a small to medium-sized business. She requested a clock and software to track her employees' working hours more accurately. This was a common request in the software industry, but not always easy to implement, as the software needed to meet the specific needs of each company and integrate with existing systems. When I heard this request, I didn't feel lost or confused. Throughout my internship, I had worked on at least 4 or 5 cost estimation spreadsheets for different projects, and my supervisor had taught me how to identify which departments would be needed for each specific project. This was one of the essential skills I had learned, which allowed me to quickly pinpoint the necessary components for the project, such as the programming team, testing team, and user interface design team. Thanks to this knowledge, I was confident that I could handle the client's request efficiently and accurately. After listening to the client's request, I began to take notes and analyze the necessary elements to build the clock and software. I started gathering information from the relevant departments and quickly planned to calculate the costs and time needed to develop the software. This was a task that required precision and thoroughness, but thanks to my previous experience, I was able to complete it smoothly. Once I had gathered all the information from the client, I felt a sense of relief because I had completed the first step in the work process. Our client requested a clock and software to track her employees' working hours, and I had carefully documented all the requirements she provided, from specific features such as time tracking to the flexibility required for integration with her company's existing systems. I made sure I didn't miss any details, as this step was crucial in determining the direction for the entire project. As soon as the call ended, I immediately hung up and felt the need to take action right away. The next step was to pass the client's requirements on to the relevant departments within the company so they could start planning the software development. However, it wasn't as simple as just passing on the information. My job wasn't just to relay what the client had requested but also to explain those requirements in a way that the programmers, engineers, and other involved employees could understand. And to do this, I needed to use the industry-specific jargon of programming. At this point, I realized that explaining a client's request wasn't just about translating from words to writing. I had to interpret the request clearly and specifically in the technical context. For example, when the client said she wanted to track her employees' working hours more accurately, I had to understand how this would be implemented in a software system. I needed to identify necessary features like the database management system, the ability to sync data with the client's current tools, and the user interface requirements to ensure it was user-friendly and intuitive. After handing over the information with all the important details, I felt that I was getting closer to the next step in the software development process. I was proud of myself for being the bridge between the client and the technical departments, helping to make everything clearer and easier for the people who would actually create the final product. This task, although seemingly simple, actually required a deep understanding of both the client's needs and the capabilities of the technologies the company could provide. 1 hour after I started working, I finally completed the cost estimate spreadsheet for the software project the client requested. To ensure accuracy, I carefully checked the calculations, redoing them 3 times to make sure there were no errors. This is an important part of our work process, as a small mistake could affect the entire project and cause unnecessary misunderstandings with the client. After checking everything and feeling fully confident in the results, I decided to send the spreadsheet via email to the client, hoping she would agree with the estimate and everything would go smoothly. However, a surprise happened right away. I swear that less than 2 minutes after sending the email, I received a notification message on the company phone assigned to me, saying estimate declined. The feeling at that moment was indescribable. I thought I had done a good job and was sure the client would accept the estimate. But the reality was not as I expected. It turned out that she had sent a brief response with the words, "This estimate doesn't work for me." Although I had prepared myself for the possibility that the client might ask for adjustments or further explanations of the spreadsheet, being rejected immediately was a bit of a surprise. Nevertheless, I maintained a professional attitude and replied with a polite message, "We are sorry to hear that, and wish you a good day." This was a way for me to not only show respect to the client but also help myself stay calm in a stressful situation. After sending this email, I continued with my work, though my mind was still wondering about the real reason behind her decision. About an hour later, I received another email from her, and this time, it wasn't another rejection, but rather a somewhat provocative question, "Is that all you can say?" At this point, I started to realize that perhaps she wasn't rejecting the estimate for technical or financial reasons, but maybe she was trying to negotiate the price. This realization was a bit of a surprise, as in my previous work experience, I hadn't encountered a situation where a client was so openly challenging the price. Immediately, I realized that I needed to inform my supervisor about this situation, because this wasn't just about accepting or rejecting the estimate anymore, but about how to handle price negotiations. This was a delicate situation, because if the client was trying to bargain without making it clear from the start, it could lead to misunderstandings or unnecessary conflict. I wanted to make sure I had support and guidance from my supervisor to handle the situation effectively and professionally. After reporting the situation to my supervisor, he immediately took action to address the issue. Without wasting time, my supervisor decided to call Karen, the client we were trying to work with. He called professionally and asked her if she would like to receive the cost estimate we had sent or if she had any other changes or requests. When the call was connected, I could clearly imagine Karen's attitude over the phone. She wasn't being pleasant and was still firm with her request. Karen bluntly rejected the offer and immediately asked for a lower price, without providing a clear reason or reasonable explanation for this request. She wasn't just expressing dissatisfaction, but was also trying to pressure us into lowering the price, even though the price we had proposed was calculated in detail and reasonably based on time, manpower, and resources needed to complete the project. Karen's determination made the situation more tense, because it was clear she wasn't going to accept the initial estimate. In response to Karen's request, my supervisor remained calm and firm. He replied that the price was non-negotiable because we had based it on clear factors and there was no way to lower the price without affecting the quality of the work. He continued to explain professionally that if she wanted to proceed with the project, she would need to accept the proposed price. This was a firm decision that reflected the consistency of the company's policy, no concessions to unreasonable demands, as this could set a bad precedent and devalue the work the company had already been providing. However, Karen didn't give up easily. She immediately resorted to a familiar trick that many customers in similar situations often use: "Let me talk to your manager." This was a tactic that Karen hoped would put pressure on us, thinking she could convince the manager to lower the price or find a way to weaken the company's demands. However, my supervisor was very smart and didn't get pulled into this game. He simply informed her that if she wanted to speak with the manager, she would get exactly the same response he had given, and there was no need to waste time on a fruitless conversation. This was a very smart move and showed confidence and determination in holding the company's ground. My supervisor didn't let Karen disrupt the workflow, and his actions helped resolve the situation quickly without getting involved in a negotiation that would not benefit the company. After that, he immediately ended the call by hanging up, not giving Karen the opportunity to continue pressuring us. This was a strategic decision that protected the company's interests while maintaining professionalism in customer communication. In the end, after being rejected for a price reduction over the phone, Karen didn't give up. She called the company again, but this time, not just by phone, she decided to come to our office building to renegotiate the price. She hoped that meeting face-to-face would change our decision, and somehow, it might make us give in to the pressure of a direct confrontation. However, everything went as before. She was rejected again. This made it even clearer that the company had no intention of changing its decision, no matter how determined she was. However, Karen didn't accept failure easily. After being rejected, she used another tactic to pressure us, complaining about poor customer service and unprofessional behavior. This was a fairly common tactic that customers sometimes use when they are dissatisfied with the outcome or conclusion they receive. Karen claimed that we had failed to provide her with a service worthy of a major customer like her. She believed our attitude was unprofessional and that we lacked flexibility in handling her requests, although it was clear in all cases that we had acted very clearly, decisively, and professionally. Shortly after, my supervisor and I were asked to attend a meeting to present our side of the story. Facing a situation like this, we had to be well prepared to defend our position and prove that we had done the right thing. Instead of arguing or saying unnecessary words, we provided all the necessary evidence to prove that Karen had actually rejected the original estimate we had sent her. We presented the conversation log, clearly showing that we had sent a full and reasonable estimate, and that she had rejected it without providing any reasonable reasons. This was strong, irrefutable evidence, proving that we had done the right thing and there was nothing wrong with our process. After all the evidence was presented, the situation began to change. We not only proved that we had acted correctly, but also made Karen unable to justify her actions. Her expression at that point no longer had any of the confidence it had before, and she couldn't even look the manager in the eye. All she could do at this point was remain silent, unable to refute the clear evidence we had provided. Our feeling at that moment was one of relief and pride, as we had not only protected the company's interests but also maintained professionalism throughout the issue. After the meeting, Karen was added to the company's blacklist and would no longer have the opportunity to work with us. She was advised to look for other companies that could meet her requirements, but clearly, her dissatisfaction was not the company's fault, but rather due to her unreasonable approach and demands. Not only did she fail to achieve her goal, but she also had to face the consequences of her unfair behavior. This was a lesson not only for Karen but also for anyone who might think they could force a company to make concessions in any way. Here's the English translation. In the end, the story of Karen and my company concluded with a clear outcome, as she failed to achieve her goal and was blacklisted. While she may have initially felt that asking for a price reduction was an effective tactic, the reality was that our determination and professionalism helped protect the company's interests. We didn't allow ourselves to get dragged into unreasonable negotiations, but instead, we stood firm and worked based on transparency and fairness. This story is not just a lesson in patience and decisiveness at work, but it also emphasizes the importance of protecting one's values and principles in any situation. The key lesson from this story is that consistency and the ability to hold one's ground in negotiation situations are essential. Sometimes, refusing an unreasonable request or maintaining professionalism even in the face of opposition can lead to the best outcomes. Furthermore, being thoroughly prepared and using clear evidence will help defend your point of view in stressful situations. More importantly, this story also reminds us that, in both work and life, honesty, clarity, and professionalism are always the keys to building trust and long-term success.